All right, let's try this again. I am back. If someone could drop a comment in after you see this so I know comments are working. Again, I don't know why this happens. It did happen one time before. Just to recap, we'll be going over how to decide between taking a pension versus a lump sum. And let me just throw the disclaimer back in here since this is a new video. This video is only general explanations and education. It's not specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Before considering acting on anything you see or hear here, first consult with your tax, legal, or investment advisor. Great, and I see we have comments. Awesome, good. Comments are working. Cool. I'll go over the dad jokes again for the fun of it, in case any of you missed it. Do you know that most farmers are outstanding in their fields? Literally, with the scarecrows and the John Deere and the hay or whatever. The other two jokes were, I wasn't originally going to get a brain transplant, but then I changed my mind, literally. And finally, fun fact, Australia's biggest export is boomerangs. It is also their biggest import because it goes out and comes back in. All right, cool. Yep, comments are definitely working. So pension versus lump sum, right. Super important decision for those of you that have to make the decision. Some of you won't have to, either because you don't have a pension in the first place, which is increasingly common, unfortunately. Or if you do, you may not have the option to take a lump sum in lieu of the pension. But for those that do have this option, it's clearly a very important decision. And like virtually all other decisions in personal and retirement planning, you can't make the decision in isolation. It's going to have to be done in the context of how it'll be impacted or will be impacted by all the other aspects of your financial life. This is no different, for better or for worse. So, and what makes it difficult is that it's not an apples to apples comparison. So it's two fundamentally different things. A lump sum is in effect an investment like any other pool or pot of money that you have. A pension is not. A pension clearly is more like Social Security. It's a lifetime stream of guaranteed income. It's effectively a form of insurance if you want to view it that way, specifically what's called longevity insurance, which means it'll last as long as you do. You know, if you live into your 90s or hundreds, you'll still have this pension. So it'll provide, sort of like Social Security, which is the same mindset to think of Social Security. It's longevity insurance. It's not an investment. Never view Social Security as an investment. You can't do a comparison of, when to take Social Security purely on financial math metrics because it's not really a fair comparison. Sort of like life insurance. Getting a little off track here, but like, is life insurance a good investment? You'd say right off the bat, no, it's not an investment. Traditional term life insurance. You're not buying it to make money. You're buying it to cover you in the event of something happening. That something happening is your early or unforeseen death. It's very much worth it, if that payout happens for you. If you end up not using it, in hindsight, it'll, it's a bad decision financially, but that's easy to say after the fact, right? You don't buy it for an investment. You buy it to protect against something. So think about Social Security and traditional pensions in that same line. They're not investments. They're a form of insurance, specifically longevity insurance, which is money that'll last, as long as you do, even if that's 40, 50, 60 years. So with that in mind, I'm not saying completely disregard the financial math or the time value of money or the break even, the mathematical break even that many people automatically default to when deciding, here's my lump sum, here's my pension. That is a good starting point to give you a general idea. So, using the financial math, and I won't get into it here, there's calculators all over the place online. But if you have a pension of $1,000 a month and they offer you a lump sum of, $1 million, like that's phenomenally good of a lump sum. If they offer you 50 grand, that's not so good. So, it kind of depends. So if the lump sum versus pension is at the extreme of like, this is really good, this is really bad, then maybe that'll help nudge your decision making. But otherwise, generally, these lump sum amounts are what's called actual. You should be more or less indifferent as opposed to which one you take, assuming you plan on living a like normal life expectancy. It's kind of a toss up. So then the pure financial math side of things doesn't really have much bearing because either way they should functionally kind of be the same from pure dollars and cents. So it's all these other factors that we're going to discuss is what really should drive the decision. Financial math, the break even, something to keep in the back of your head, that's not the predominant decision maker, or it shouldn't be at least. It's these other things we're going to touch on. So I broke it down into a series of pros and cons. And I chose to view it from the lump sum perspective, meaning the pros of taking a lump sum and the cons of taking a lump sum. If you want to view it from the pension perspective, simply just like flip. Everything that's a pro for lump sum is going to be a con for a pension, and vice versa. I brought back the third grade arts and crafts class today with some pretty colored paper. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing this is 2020. There's definitely much better tech solutions that allow me to screen share and whatever. But for some reason, I really like this kind of hokey, fun with paper and glue sticks type of thing. I am kicking around the idea of next year perhaps making these things through Zoom, which would do a few things. One is it would allow people to put it on their calendars. It would also allow people who are outside of the Facebook sphere to attend. And there's better tech options in terms of me being able to screen share, easier recording of it. People can share it, not that you have to, but you can also chime in with audio, verbally on these things and not just chat through comments. So TBD. I started these lives in June, I think. It'll be 6 months at the end of the year. So I think they're getting good traction. I'm going to try to see if there's better ways to do this, better tech-wise, better recording-wise, better scheduling, calendar-wise, whatever. So may change this format in 2021. We'll see. Who knows? All right. Before I get going, I see there is a comment, perhaps question from Dave. Dave says, I have heard the theory that the lump sum must be at least 16 times the annual pension benefit. I guess that would apply to someone 65 years old. How about an older person? We love the paper cutout graphics. Yes, thank you, Dave. As do I. So, Canon says, try Avaya Spaces, better than Zoom. Great, thank you. Oh, Mavis is just playing around with me now. Mavis says, ignore, just testing. Thanks, Mavis. No, that's cool. We're cool. I like Mavis. So Dave, it's 16 times. Let me think about that. Heard the theory that the lump sum must be at least 16 times the annual pension benefit, I guess. Yeah, that's one rule of thumb. Another way to look at it is 6%. I was actually meeting with a client last night who has or will have a pension and discussed if he is presented with a lump sum, what's a quick and dirty way to know if that lump sum is worth it? And we looked at it from the other perspective, said 6%. So basically, it's the exact same math, Dave. Whatever your annual pension payment would be divided by 6%, and that will, divided by 0.06, and that will equate to a, thumb in the air figure of what's a reasonable amount of lump sum to expect. Looking at it backwards, yours is doing the exact same thing, Dave. So if you have a lump sum divided by 16, and you'll come up with your annual payment. So that math kind of works the same way. Yes, I think that's a fair assumption. And obviously age matters. So that's usually keyed off age 65. If for whatever reason you have a pension and you haven't yet started at 80, the calculus is going to be very different. Most companies assume actuarially that you're going to live till your early to mid 80s. So that's kind of the benchmark they have. So figure if 65 is the starting point, then you have 18, 20 years or so that they're assuming you are you're going to live, and therefore that's how long your payment's going to last. So yes, if you have a pension that lets you delay until 80, and the payment continues to get larger over time for delaying, as opposed to being stuck at whatever it would be at 65, then sure, at age 80, it's going to be completely different. Your pension, instead of $1,000 a month, is going to be like $10,000 a month or something crazy, Dave. And that's how commercial annuities work too. If you buy an annuity from a traditional fixed income annuity from an insurance company, you hand over a lump sum of money. For example, now if you give $100,000 and you are early 60s, you're probably going to get about $400 a month for the rest of your life. If you are 85 and you hand over that same $100,000 today, I don't even know what the math is, but I'm making this up. It's going to be thousands of dollars a month for the rest of your life, because you're only going to live a few more years if you start that late. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, but good point, Dave. Yes, that math would and should change if you're older or younger than 65, but that 16 times thing is a good starting point to, rough gauge is the lump sum reasonable by historic standards at least. All right, so pros and cons of taking a lump sum. Again, these are all sort of I don't want to call them softer side, but it's not just the dollars and cents. I'm done with the dollars and cents spiel. I kind of Dave hit on it. Take your annual payment divided by 0.06, and that's sort of the reasonable lump sum to expect or vice versa, if you have your lump sum divided by 16, that's sort of the reasonable amount of annual pension to expect. So, all right, pros and cons. The first pro of taking a lump sum over a traditional pension is, wait for it, more flexibility. So when you have a pension, and again, depending what side you're looking from, this is a pro for a lump sum, but a con for a pension, is more flexibility. You have a lump sum, it's money in hand, you can do with as you please. You can invest it, you can spend it, you can put it in a trust, you can give it to your kids, make sure it's not touched by anyone, creditors, predators, or senators. You can donate it to charity. Lots of flexibility. With a pension, there's generally none. Once you start it, that's it. It's going to last for your life and then stop, or maybe for your spouse's life if you predecease your spouse. But there's rarely an option to kind of pull the ripcord, handful of years in and cash out a lump sum at that time. It's usually irrevocable. Once you make the decision and start it, that's it. You can't go back. All right. Next pro of taking a lump sum: greater return? ? So, the past is no guarantee of future results, but generally speaking, a properly invested lump sum that's not, drawn down or spent too much too fast will most likely end up financially better over the long term than a pension. Now, I got to wrap lots of disclaimers and asterisks and caveats around that. Not always, clearly. You can squander it and blow it in a day, which is obviously bad. But if used and treated and invested properly, you can, historically speaking, using actual, historical returns of stocks and bonds, you can probably get yourself more money over the long term by properly investing it than you can with a pension. Again, big question mark though. And that's why it's a hard comparison to compare a lump sum versus pension. Because yes, maybe the lump sum will return you more, maybe it won't. There's lots of uncertainty and unknowns. With a pension, there's effectively zero uncertainty and zero unknowns. So it's not a fair comparison, something that's completely guaranteed to something that has lots of who knows what's going to happen. But nonetheless, it is quite possible your lump sum could be invested and do you better financially than if you were to instead take the pension in the first place. The next pro of taking a lump sum: larger legacy. What is legacy? That is fancy wealth speak for what the stuff you leave after you're dead to whoever you leave it to. So with a pension, as I mentioned before, generally speaking, it either stops when you die or it stops when your spouse dies if you predecease your spouse. Rarely does a pension, traditional pension, have a benefit of any sort that lives on for kids or cousins or other relatives or friends. Some may, it's possible, but generally no. So if one of your primary goals is to leave as much as possible for your kids or your charity or what have you, then yeah, you may want to take the lump sum with the hopes that you can invest it and make it grow larger than you just taking your stream of $1,000, $2,000 a month every month for the rest of your life from a traditional pension. So I also put a question mark after that because who knows, maybe it will end up being a larger legacy, a larger pot of money left when you're dead. Maybe it won't. But again, chances are, this sort of ties into greater return. You may be able to, you could likely be able to do better financially with a lump sum than you can a pension. All right, let me, before I rip off this last blue tab, let me see a handful of comments here. Let me get a sip of water. Jerry is sad that the dad jokes were missed. Yes, they'll be on the replay, Jerry, so you can see them there. And they were glorious this week. They're glorious every week, in my opinion. But anyway. Teresa, sorry if this is a dumb question. What would the math need to be to evaluate a lump sum if you retire at 55? Good question, Teresa. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, all else equal, you're adding 10 years to the assumed longevity of how long the pension would last if you took the pension, so the lump sum should be higher. I don't know. I'll have to think about that and see if I can come up with a rational, reasonable answer at some point. It won't be during this video, Teresa, but I'll come back to it on the group. Good question. Dave Myers says SPIA equals single premium immediate annuity, and you can get free quotes to compare. Yes. So the annuity I spoke of is the traditional plain vanilla basic sort of pension annuity. You hand over a lump sum of money to an insurance company. They give you a stream of payments for the rest of your life. There are calculators and free quote tools. I'm not endorsing this. This is just the one that I happen to know of and use. It's called immediateannuities.com. It is from an insurance broker. Again, I don't sell insurance. I'm not licensed to. I'm not endorsing that person, but it's the only site, one of few sites I'm aware of where you can put in info and get free quotes without having to put in your email or any other contact info. That's a big plus, because otherwise there's other sites that give you quotes, but you got to put in your contact info. Then guess what? You're getting hounded by insurance salespeople to pitch you something, not with immediateannuities.com. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Good point. Brenda, if you take the pension, is it better to take a term insurance policy for your spouse or take the reduced benefit for death spousal benefit? Yeah, great question. I discussed this exact thing last night when I met with the clients, and it was nice. This was the first in-person client visit I had since March, fully masked. Different world we live in, but anyway, it was nice to be in front of people again. But yeah, so this question came up. So you can also incorporate insurance into this whole equation. Now, the client discussion I had last night was he had two payment options. One is a payment that lasts just for his life, or a smaller payment that lasts for his life and his spouse's life if he were to predecease her. So the question was, I think his life only was like $400 a month higher. Would it be better to just take that payment that does not have a benefit for his wife and use some or all of that $400 a month extra to go buy some insurance, whether it's just a 20-year term or whole life or whatever? And the answer was, yeah, maybe. You got to shop around and see how much insurance you can get for your age, for your gender, for your height, for your weight, for your smoking history, for your general health history, because you have to undergo medical underwriting. Maybe insurance is more cost effective, maybe it's not. So Brenda, it's a good idea and something to look into. I can't say, for you, whether it would or wouldn't be better. It's going to come down to what's your pension versus what's the actual lump sum they're offering. And then you got to look into what are your actual financial needs if you die or your spouse goes first. Shop around, how much insurance could you actually buy and for how much? So there's lots of moving parts to that question, Brenda, but it's a great idea, and I'm glad you brought it up. It is something to think about and consider. But the answer is going to be different in everyone's unique set of circumstances, though. Pat, what would you invest a lump sum in? Oh man, I am not touching that one, Pat. So yeah, great question and a very logical question. But I am a living, breathing financial planner / investment advisor. I can't discuss anything that even remotely smells of actual tangible investment advice. Again, I know nothing about you in particular, Pat, so I can't even start to say what is or isn't good for you. But it all depends. Anytime anyone asks me what should I invest in or how much, the answer is always going to be it depends, first of all. But specifically, it depends on when do you need the money? What's it for? Is it savings for 30 years from now? Is it an emergency fund? Is it to buy a new car in 5 years? Those things all drastically impact the answer of what you should invest in. Also, do you have other debts outstanding? Maybe paying off debts is more important. So, sorry, Pat, great question. Very logical question, but not something that any random dude on Facebook should be giving you answers on, unfortunately. Kenan, do you agree that make companies have underfunded their pension commitments, though most likely it's protected by feds? Great question. Let me leave that to the end. That is something I'm going to comment on. So yes, private pensions do have a government-funded insurance system behind them, but that has some of its own strains. And then your next question, Ken, are there limits to what PBGC provides? So PBGC stands for the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corp. That's the national pot of insurance system behind private employer pensions. I will touch on that at the back end of this thing, Cannon. Okay. And let's see, one other comment here. Jackie says, any rule of thumb for small pensions, like 100K or less? My company froze our pension and mine is only about 60K, which only represents less than 5% of my total investable assets. I'm thinking lump sum and get some kind of bonus money for rolling over to a new IRA. Yes, great thought, Jackie. Again, that's for me to give an answer, it would require too much personalization to know about you and your circumstances to say that. But sure, at some point, it's like, what's the difference? If your cash value, let me just use a super extreme, is $1,000, whatever, it doesn't matter. Your pension on that's going to be, a couple bucks a month or something silly. So yes, at some point, it really doesn't matter. Hold that thought. So let me get more into that. Like one of the decision factors as to whether or not you should or shouldn't take a pension is, do you need additional sources of guaranteed lifetime income to cover your basic expenses? If the answer is yes, then maybe you want to lean towards a pension. If the answer is no, then maybe you lean towards a lump sum, but I will get to that. Cool. All right. And the final pro of taking a lump sum is, oh, come on, man. Keep pace with inflation. So most pensions, specifically those from private employers, i.e. non-government, often don't have any sort of inflation adjustment. The $1,000 a month you get at age 65 will continue to be $1,000 a month, even if you live until 70, till 100. So $1,000 a month may be a decent amount of money now at 65, but fast forward 30, 35 years, who knows what inflation is going to be, but that $1,000 a month could easily be the equivalent of only $500 a month or less in actual purchasing power. So most traditional pensions, at least from private employers, don't have an inflation adjustment. Now the FERS pension, FERS, which is the federal pension, or the CSRS, which is the other federal pension that is for employees who started pre-84, 1984, they do have inflation adjustments, which is nice. Social Security does as well. Fun fact, Social Security just announced its 2021 COLA, or cost of living adjustment. It is 1.3%. Not great, but hey, could be worse. Could be zero. And it was zero for a handful of years over the last 10 years or so. I should stand up for this. These are getting low down. So these are the pros of taking a lump sum. Let's now look at the cons. Let me just move my clip here so I can pull my janky little blue tabs. The first con of taking a lump sum: you may outlive it. This is a very big con, obviously. Pretty self-explanatory. With a pension, like I said, think of it as longevity insurance. No matter how long you live, it will be there. Asterisk, assuming your employer is still there to fund it. And I'll touch on that at the end. But assuming they will be, yes, functionally your pension is guaranteed for as long as you live, whether it's 5 years or 50 years. Your lump sum, zero guarantees. You can blow it, you can outlive it, you can have a massive health event that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars that makes you deplete that lump sum. You can't deplete a pension. Now, a pension may not be much to start with. It's only $1,000 a month, but it lasts forever. Lump sum, not the case. The second con of taking a lump sum, and these are all sort of related, to be fair. It's really not three distinct cons. They're all functionally kind of the same thing. There's investment risk. With any sort of insurance type thing, and I'm considering an annuity or a pension an insurance type thing, you don't, the traditional SPIA annuity, the vanilla, you hand over money, they give you a stream of income for the rest of your life. You don't have any investment risk. There are some annuities where you do, different story, but the basic pension-like annuity, you, the annuitant, the annuity holder, do not have any investment risk. The insurance company bears the full brunt of the investment risk. No matter how good or how bad the markets perform, they still need to pay you that $1,000 a month annuity or whatever. Same thing with a pension. The employer still needs to pay you the $1,000 a month annuity pension, no matter how bad the investments in their pension system perform, no matter how bad their general financial profile, the operating profitability or lack thereof, no matter how bad that is, they still got to pay these pensions to you. When you take the lump sum, it's all on you. It's all on you and how you invest it. You want to be super conservative and say, forget that, I'm not taking any investment risk. You can plop it all in cash and get yourself 0.6% a year, which is the going rate now for high yield savings accounts. Well, guess what? That's not going to keep up with inflation. So even though you're still earning some nominal amount of interest every year, the inflation adjusted purchasing power is actually negative. You're actually losing money over time because your 0.6% interest will not be keeping up with the 1 something, 2% something inflation that there's going to be, if not higher, over the years. So that's one extreme if you just park it all in cash. So there's no investment risk per se, but you have a lot of inflation risk. The other end, if you go nuts and invest it all and plop it all into a single stock or even a handful of stocks, whatever, stocks can go down, bonds can go down. So there is investment risk. Now, if invested prudently, properly, appropriately for you and your risk profile, blah, 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 coming back to this, there is a good chance that lump sum will do you well financially, but for a whole host of who knows what events or outcomes, you have this investment risk and it could go down. And this, like I said, this sort of ties into you may outlive it. Finally, the last con of taking a lump sum is emotional distress. All sort of related. So again, you can outlive it either because your investments do horribly bad or you're a spendthrift maybe. Maybe you don't have the discipline to only parse yourself out $1,000 a month. Maybe you go and put in a $50,000 pool and go buy an unnecessarily expensive car and do lots of crazy lavish vacations that you otherwise wouldn't have done if you had your vanilla $1,000 a month pension. And then investment risk can hurt your nest egg, your lump sum. So this can all lead to emotional distress on a few fronts. If seeing your lump sum dwindle, either because you're spending it too quickly or the investments aren't doing well, you may lose sleep at night. You may have lots of anxiety. That's not cool. You don't want to be, in my mind, amongst other things, the goal of retirement isn't just to stop working necessarily. For some people it is, but that's not the end all be all. It's freedom of time, freedom of choice. It's hopefully enjoying yourselves in all respects possible. You don't want to have to worry about and lose sleep every night over, oh my God, I took this lump sum and I'm looking at it going down by the day. That's not good. Again, whether it's investments that are doing that or you spending it for whatever reason, you may not want that. With a pension, you don't have that distress. It's going to show up in your mail or your bank account every month like clockwork. That's the upside. So anyway, good on this. This is the pros and cons of taking a lump sum. Question. Melanie asked, what about taxes with the lump sum? Yes, great question. It depends. Most times the lump sum will not be immediately taxable when you get it. So think of it as a tax deferred account like an IRA or like a 401k sort of. If you do choose a lump sum, what you most often do is roll it into an investment account like an IRA. You don't just take the whole thing out in one fat lump. If you do, sure, that'll all be taxable when you take it out, generally speaking, and that's not good. But you can roll it into an IRA. It won't be taxable at the time. Once it's in the IRA, like anything in an IRA, it's only taxable as you take money out. Every dollar you take out is then taxed to you. Now, it could be different depending what the pension is. Like if you contributed to some of this pension over your lifetime, then maybe a portion of that lump sum will not be taxable because it'll be viewed as like a return of monies you paid in that were already taxed perhaps. But generally, if it's a pension that you did not contribute to, then assume it'll all be taxed, but won't necessarily be taxed when you take the lump sum, if you roll that lump sum into an IRA and then just dole out little pieces over time from it. Good question. Dave says, our not unusual situation is that my wife has a large cash balance account that is still earning 4% interest a year, but at age 72, she needs to take a lump sum or the annuity. It's great that the balance is rising, but the future annuity predictions are declining because current interest rates are so low. My wife is 66 and we are just letting the lump sum balance grow at 4%. We will still probably take the annuity, but this is a bit depressing. Depressing. A little bit, Dave. Yeah, so I have a client who has a 403B from a school district, local school district. Some of it was rolled into an IRA. Some is sitting earning a fixed 3% per year. It's an annuity, 403B, tax sheltered annuity. And same thing, at some point, it's kind of do your business or get off the pot, meaning either take it out, roll it out, or take distributions or annuitize it. But while it's sitting there, 3% per year isn't that bad for a guaranteed return. Now there's fees in it. That's another thing to consider. 403Bs, many of them are notoriously and unnecessarily high with fees. Not all of them, but some of them. But that's something to consider. So anyway, Dave, 4% is a good return to get. So that's like, yay, positive. But the fact that at 72, you need to do something with it, not ideal, but it's better than the alternative of not having the money in the first place. So there's always that to keep in mind. With all this tax stuff we talk about, I don't mean to make it sound like taxes are the end of the world. Paying taxes, in one sense, in one overly optimistic lens to view it through, having to pay taxes means you have money. That's a good problem to have. Doesn't mean you should pay more than you have to, which is kind of what I'm here for, is to say let's minimize it and avoid taxes to all extents legally allowable. But just because you have to pay taxes, don't let that kind of ruin your mojo, Dave, as much as you can not let it ruin your mojo. All right, next. So that was the pros and cons of a lump sum. I now have a little checklist, also in hokey construction paper, physical clipboard, hold it up in front of the camera form. The questions to ask yourself: should I take the pension? Now, honestly, as I was putting this together, I was like, I don't know why I chose to view this from the perspective of lump sum, but this checklist from the perspective of pension. But so be it. These are already printed, and we're rolling, so I'm going with it. Questions to ask yourself when you're saying, should I take the pension? First question, and hopefully you like how I mixed it up. I didn't just do like the horizontal peel-offs. Now I'm doing this like cascading vertical thing here because I'm fancy. First question, do I need additional guaranteed lifetime secure income? So what do I mean by that? Lots of words there. In my planning and in the practice and what I do with clients, I view myself as fairly conservative. Now, I try not to bestow my beliefs and opinions on my clients, but I think this is a good pragmatic approach to at least discuss with clients and present. I like to view your future expenses as sort of two buckets, like the stuff you absolutely have to have: food, housing, taxes, health insurance, basic transportation, stuff like that. You can't get around it. I'm not saying basic transportation means buying an $80,000 car. It means having some means, whether it's the bus, depending where you live, or a reasonably priced car, whatever. So there's a certain amount of expenses you're always going to need to have to pay no matter what. The rest of the stuff, whether you call it fun money or discretionary or whatever, are things that you could do without it if you really had to. Now, it may burden on you emotionally and mess with your psyche, but it's not going to impact your ability to physically live, because you'll be able to pay taxes and not get kicked out of your house. You'll be able to eat. You'll be able to pay for your health care, whatever. So anyway, in doing the projections I do, we project out for the entirety of clients' lifetimes what their anticipated income and expenses are every year. And we inflate expenses and whatever. And break it out into sort of like the absolute must-have expenses and then the want-to-have or would like-to-have expenses. I think a good mindset, a good framework is to say, what are my absolute necessary expenses? Let me try to pair those up with sources of guaranteed lifetime secured income, meaning it'll always be there no matter how long I live. I can't outlive this monthly paycheck. There's only 3 sources of guaranteed secure lifetime income: Social Security, pensions, traditional pensions, and annuities. Lots of annuities are bunk, but there are some good, clean, practical annuities that do fill a necessary void for some people. If you don't have enough Social Security or pension, well, guess what? Annuities are the only option to provide you guaranteed secure lifetime income. Dividends don't count. They can go away. They're variable. Interest on bonds don't count. Bonds can go up and down in value. Bonds can default and you stop getting your interest. So Social Security, pension, annuities. With that said, you do your projection. You decide, I'm going to need $50,000 a year of minimum expenses every year through retirement. Therefore, I'm going to ideally want at least $50,000 of guaranteed secure lifetime income. But what if your Social Security is only going to be $40,000? Well, now you have a $10,000 hole that you may want to fill with other sources of guaranteed income. What if your pension fills that hole? Fine. What if you have a pension of $10,000 a month, a year? Then great. Then maybe check this off. Maybe yes. Do I have a marker here? Not that this really adds anything to it, but sure, yes. I want and need additional sources of guaranteed lifetime income. If your answer is yes to that, maybe you consider the pension. Now, kind of the flip side of that is, if you have such a massively large portfolio of investable assets, like if you only have a $10,000 a year sort of deficit in meeting your necessary expenses, but you have a $5 million portfolio, you're going to be fine. Like even under the most conservative of assumptions, your $5 million portfolio could generate 10,000 bucks a year for you with negligible, if not zero, risk of not happening. So you got to keep that in mind as well. But generally speaking, if you don't have enough Social Security or annuities to cover your fixed expenses, consider perhaps taking the pension. Okay, let me, before I move on and flip this to the next one, check some questions. Teresa asks, I heard that when you get old enough for Social Security, your pension drops in half, with the Social Security making that half back up. Is this true? And as full retirement age for us is 67, would this happen then or age 62? Good question, Teresa. That is sometimes true, sometimes not. What you are referring to, I forget the term. We had a question about this in the group like a month ago. Some pensions are structured such that they'll give you some high amount now, and then usually once you hit 62, the earliest you can start Social Security, that pension will get dropped. And the assumption is they're basically telling you or assuming you start Social Security at 62, and that is going to make up for the drop in pension that they're giving you. Not all employers do that, and those that do may offer you an option. They may offer you two pensions. One pension that has that step down feature, which means it'll pay you more in the early years, but then drop down when you're 62 or whatever age they initiate the drop. Or they may offer you just a flat level pension the rest of your life. It's going to be lower than what the starting amount would be with that tiered pension. It'll be lower, but it'll stay stable for life. I don't know how common that structuring is versus just a flat out, you get a single payment every year, every month for life. But if your employer does that, then that's another question I unfortunately can't answer specific to you, Teresa. I would need to look at your Social Security, your other sources of income, your expenses, whatever, and decide what's going to happen with the pension and therefore when you should or should not take Social Security. But good thought, and those are things you need to consider. Mavis appreciates all the thought Andy put into the peel-off effects. I know, right? It's like when making a video, there's all those different transitions you can do. I didn't want to just do the horizontal peel. No, I want the vertical flip too, and different colors, which hopefully you noticed. Shauna says, so high tech. Yes, high tech for 1975. But whatever, I like it. It's hokey. It's me. This is me. Kenan says, my challenge with annuities is the cost associated with them as well as the low interest rates right now. So you're forking over more money for the annuity as opposed to when interest rates are higher. Is this wrong? Yes, and I actually have a comment about that towards the end, Kenan. So not all annuities have high fees. I did one of these lives about annuities a couple months ago, and I have videos on YouTube. There's 4 different annuity videos that walk through in impressively good detail about annuities and their fees or lack thereof. Not all annuities have crazy fees. Variable annuities packed with riders, yes, you can realistically be paying like 4% per year in fees. The plain vanilla SPIA, fixed income pension, a fixed income annuity that we're talking about, there are no direct fees per se. You give a lump sum, you get a payment for life. That's it. Now, indirectly, the insurance company is making money because they're investing your lump sum and earning more than what they're paying you, but that's fine. They need to make some profit. But technically, there's no explicit outright fees in those annuities, those forms of annuities, Kenan. As for low rates, yes, it is what it is. Rates now are historically low, which means for a given lump sum of money you give to an insurance company, your payout on an annuity is going to be lower than it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago or 30 years ago. It is what it is. Not ideal, but if you're in a position where you need the benefit and the guarantee and the value of an annuity, you may not have the ability to hope that rates will be higher and sit and wait for a few years and try to bank on macroeconomic things playing out such that rates increase. That's a dangerous gamble to make. Rates are low now. What's to say they can't be lower, or zero for multiple years? So I wouldn't try to time things. If you need an annuity, get an annuity. Timing the market in any way is a dangerous game to play, but yes, rates now are low, which means annuities are historically low payouts, unfortunately. All right. Yes, so Mavis says Social Security leveling benefit. That's the word I was looking for Teresa's pension. Thank you very much, Mavis. Janine, how do we know what annuity to buy? Do we just start searching, or are there recommendations? I don't want an annuity that takes a bunch of fees, and please describe what kind of annuity you said was good. Uh, yes, fantastic question. I could talk and or rant about that for days, Janine. Not a simple answer. I would recommend starting with, you can go back and look at on my YouTube channel. I'll post a link if you'd like. The live I did about annuities a couple months ago, that video's there where I go over all the stuff at a high level. If you want more detail with pretty graphs and slides and more produced than me actually reading from a script, so I kind of look like very monotone and robotic, I do those other videos on YouTube that are sort of formal educational videos. I have one about income annuities, indexed annuities, variable annuities, and QLACs, which are a special kind of annuity bought inside an IRA. Anyway, check out those videos. They'll provide a lot of color and insight about fees and structures, what's good, what's bad. That will give you a little more mindset to think about what annuity may be right for you, but without a lot of digging and research and data gathering from you, it's impossible to say which annuity is right for you, if any. Maybe you don't need any, Janine. All right. And Janine asks, can you stop the annuity when you want? Depends. The difficult thing with annuity, the word, and there is no standard annuity. The word annuity has so many underlying, there's so many things that can call themselves annuities that have drastically different forms and features and expenses and options. So it's an injustice to paint all annuities with the brush of just calling them an annuity and generalizing and saying all annuities are good or all are bad. You can't say that. It's like saying food is bad, right? Food is too general of a term. There's way too many different kinds of food. Yeah, some is garbage, but has its place. Some is good. Some people are allergic or intolerant to some food, so it's bad for them, but good for someone else. So same thing with annuities. It's kind of a clunky analogy, but you can think about it like that. There's way too many different kinds of annuities to say they're all good, or you can stop it or you can't stop it, because it's going to depend on the particular annuity. Mary asks, how come I can't see all the comments and questions? I don't know. Good question. I'm seeing what I think are all the comments and questions, Mary, but I don't know. There's been a few dozen so far. If you don't see those, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe refresh your browser or something. All right, chugging along. So other questions to ask yourself when deciding, should I take the pension? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Next, am I risk averse? What does risk averse mean? It means you don't like taking risk. You lose sleep, you get agita, you get heartburn. You worry about your future from seeing your account values fluctuate. You don't like the thought of maybe this will run out. That's being risk averse. If you are risk averse, you may want and like and need the safety and security and guaranteedness of a pension, as opposed to taking a lump sum and investing it and having it potentially run out or drop when the markets drop or whatever. So if you are, what happened to my pen? If you're risk averse, another check, another reason why you may want to consider the pension. Moving along. Am I okay leaving less to my heirs? And these all tie into that pros and cons thing I did before. Again, with a pension, traditional pension, it usually, it'll last for your life, potentially for the life of your spouse if you predecease your spouse. But generally speaking, after that, it's gone. The payments stop. If one of your primary goals and wishes for retirement and wealth transfer and whatever is to leave money to your heirs, then a pension may not make sense. You may want to go with the lump sum to invest it and not use it and hope it grows so you can leave more for whoever ends up getting it after you leave this world. But if your heirs are sort of a secondary concern, like, yeah, whatever's left, good, they can get it. But if I die with nothing, I'm fine with that. If I die with nothing left over, I should say, I'm fine with that. Then, yep, maybe another reason to consider taking the traditional pension. Just looking at the comments here. Huh. All right. Yeah, it looks like the comments are acting a little squirrely. Apologies. I blame it on Facebook. Anyway, the other question to ask is, do I have above average longevity? What is longevity? That is simply how long you're expected to live or you anticipate living. I think I mentioned before, but most traditional pensions, corporate pensions, assume you live until some point in your 80s. If you have reason to believe you live longer, if your parents are well into their 90s, if your other blood relatives, generally live past their mid 80s, and you don't have any particular conditions that would lead you to believe you're going to die sooner than them, meaning you're not a smoker, you don't have some other unique genetic condition or whatever, and there's a good chance you'll live past your 80s, then yeah, then maybe a pension is a good idea, because again, a pension will live as long as you live. Whereas a lump sum, there is that risk of it running out from either spending it too much too soon or investments going awry. So if you think you're going to live longer than, let's call it mid 80s, maybe you consider the pension. So these are the four sort of specific to you circumstances that you need to consider. You notice I didn't talk about like the markets or rates or whatever. This is just specific to you and your broader retirement planning / financial planning needs and preferences and views. There's a fifth topic, a fifth question on this list. So, but I view it in a different vein as these, because these four are the specific to you things that these answers will be different for everybody. And these four should be, in my opinion, should be the main driver of whether or not you choose the pension versus the lump sum. If it's a tiebreaker, so if you're still mixed, so maybe, and I'm not saying all four of these means definitely take the pension, but likely maybe. If you're 2 and 2, so you check 2 yeses, 2 nos, maybe it's like, well, Andy's checklist isn't very compelling to me and it isn't helping me any. Then maybe you go to a tiebreaker, which is, are interest rates high right now? Are they historically high? Why does this matter? Not to get too into financial math and what's called time value of money, but the process of equating a lifetime stream of income with a present day lump sum is done by what's called discounting. Discounting basically says take whatever the assumed interest rate is and figure out like how much lump sum do we need today invested at whatever rate to produce this lifetime stream of payments. Without going more depth than that, all else equal, the higher interest rates are, the lower the lump sum will be. Right, I get that. Yes, right. So the higher the interest rates, the lower the lump sum will be. So therefore, if you're thinking, should I take the pension? If rates are really historically high right now, your lump sum will likely be lower than it otherwise would be. So maybe this is like, yeah, that lump sum is not a good deal. Forget that. This is another reason to possibly choose a traditional pension. Now, let's come to present day. Interest rates are painfully historically low. So this is a big fat no on this checklist right now. Which means low interest rates means all else equal, a higher lump sum than it otherwise would have been if rates were higher. So anyway, but again, in my view, these four are really what should drive your decision, because these are personal to you. These matter more. This is the market. The market is what it is. Trying to gamble on, is it high, is it low, is it going to get higher or lower? That's a dangerous game to play, in my opinion, and I make no attempts to try to do that. There are plenty of super well-paid talking heads and academics and financial professionals who make lucrative careers out of making predictions and stuff. Lots of times they're wrong, sometimes they're right. Those that are right go on to become wildly famous and people view them as oracles. Those that are wrong kind of wallow in the shadows and you never hear about them being wrong. They just quietly go away. But those that are right shout it to the world, and hey, all of a sudden now they're this miracle soothsayer that predicted the future. Anyway, getting off on a rant. Don't try to predict rates or the stock market or whatever. So that's why I'm saying something to consider, maybe a tiebreaker, but do not let the pure dollars and cents financial math drive the decision for you, in my opinion. Good? All right. I got 2 other sort of final comments. Let me just see here what else we got in the comment string. Jackie has one great aunt that lived to 101 and another to 111. Damn. I better plan to live for long retirement. Yes, exactly, Jackie. That's freakishly high longevity. So if you don't have any serious health issues, then plan to live well into your 90s. Especially your aunts now. If they're 100 now, they were born early 1900s. You were born, I'll assume you're at least 21. So maybe you're not. But anyway, you were born late 1900s. medical advances have have come a great ways. So if they live to 100, 111, and you have that same bloodline, maybe you live to like 150 or something cool like that. Who knows? Anyway, Susan did not have an option for a lump sum. Yeah, some pensions don't. It's like you get what you get. Here's your pension. You could not take it if you want. That'd be silly. Or take it. There's no alternative. There's no lump sum. Brenda asks, can you buy an annuity at any age, say for your child? Yeah, I believe so. So the person who buys the annuity doesn't necessarily need to be what's called the annuitant. The annuitant is the one who receives the payments. That can be different than the one who actually buys the annuity. So yeah, I guess in theory, you can buy an annuity for your child. I don't know if you mean like you want it to pay based on your child's life, or you want it to pay to your child based on your life, but either way, I believe that's possible, Brenda. Cannon asks, my comments just got shuffled. What the hell? Oh, is it better to take a lump sum now that interest rates are very low? Yeah, I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no. That's that fifth bullet, right? Generally speaking, I've had multiple calls with a potential client who keeps asking the same question. He has a pension. He's nearing retirement. They keep offering him a buyout, a lump sum amount, and that lump sum changes every year. They revise the lump sum every December based on, he has one less year of assumed life, so the lump sum changes for that, but they keep changing their interest rate assumptions. And since interest rates are now historically low, that means his lump sum is higher now than it was historically. So yeah, again, if this is your tiebreaker, the interest rates and therefore larger lump sum, maybe yes, maybe take the lump sum, but don't let interest rates alone, Kenan, drive this decision. I think that's, in my view, it's backwards. You should instead look at your other personal financial circumstances when deciding you take the lump sum or not. All right. David, Google is working on a project to extend life expectancy to age 500. Man, I don't want to do that. That'd be weird. Would I be able to have like my 42-year-old body in mind? Or would I be like, a bag of dust and bones at 500, David? Good to know. Yeah. Janine, is the amount of your monthly income from the annuity dependent on the amount of the annuity? Is it fixed? The more you have, the more income. Sort of. Or depends. Again, every annuity is going to be different. If you are just buying what's called the SPIA, S-P-I-A, single premium immediate annuity, that's where you give over a lump sum of money to an insurance company. They give you a lifetime stream of monthly payments. Yes, all else equal, the more money you give, the lump sum, the larger your payment's going to be. Other things that impact it, the older you are when you start it, the larger your payments are going to be, because it's assumed you'll live less. So they're going to have to pay you out, not have to pay you out as long, so they'll pay you out more per month. Right. So, and it could be fixed, it could be variable, depends on the annuity. Some annuities pay out a variable payment based on the value of your account and how it's invested. Again, it all depends. There's crazy amount of flavors and differences to annuities, Janine. All right, last comment before I mention my other two things I want to touch on here. What time is it? 8:57. So Wendy asks, wouldn't colas, like Pepsi or Coke? I'm a Coke guy. Pepsi's too sweet, which is funny to say because Coke is like painfully sweet, but Pepsi's got this weird, too much sweetness. Speaking of cola, anyway. So I know it's not the cola you're talking about, but so Wendy asks, wouldn't cost of living adjustments and subsidized healthcare be factors towards leaning towards the pension option too? Yeah, exactly. If you have a pension that has a cost of living adjustment, like the federal FERS pension, or if you're lucky enough to have a private employer pension that has it, sure, that should factor in, versus a fixed, unincreasing amount isn't as good as an amount that goes up with inflation. Now, another thing to consider, Wendy, if you have a pension with inflation adjustments, chances are the starting payment they're going to give you is going to be less than what it would have been if it was a fixed level pension for your whole life. So which one's better? It's going to take a lot of number crunching and guesstimates and financial math to figure it out. There's no free lunch, generally speaking. If you can have a fixed $1,000 a month pension for life, or a pension for life that has inflation adjustments, chances are it's not going to start at $1,000 a month. It's going to be, I'm just making this up, 500, let's say, and then it'll go up a little bit every year of your life as there's inflation. So It's not easy to say which one's going to be better, but yes, you should consider, do you have cost of living adjustments or not? All right, one last annuity question before I hit on my last two things here. Lori asks, if I buy an annuity with a lump sum pension payment, is it taxable as it pays out? Depends what the taxability of that lump sum is. If the lump sum is entirely tax deferred or none of it's been taxed yet, then yes, the annuity payments will be 100% taxable to you as you receive them, Lori. If, on the other hand, some of that lump sum was money you contributed to with your own after-tax funds, then your annuity payments will be prorated. Some of the annuity payments will be taxable. Some of it will be viewed as like a return of the money you already put in after tax. So that portion will not be taxable. All depends, Lori. All right, so my final two comments, and then I'll take whatever other random questions you all want to throw here. Other things to keep in mind with the pension, and this came up before, is the financial health and the stability and security of the employer who's obligated to pay you that pension. So it's no secret, companies are trying to get out of the traditional pension game. Anyone who's starting work now, after 2000, 2010, good luck finding a place that gives a pension. As far as private employers go, public employers, definitely, yeah. Federally, there's pensions. A lot of school districts, most still have pensions. Other government jobs typically still have pensions. But private employment, really hard to start a job today that's going to give you a pension. Because there's so much risk involved to the companies behind them. No matter how bad the markets get, they're still on the hook for making sure they can pay you. And people are obviously living longer, which means companies are paying out these pensions for potentially decades longer than they originally anticipated. When pensions first started, mid-1900s, the general assumption was people you usually worked in a physical job, right? An agrarian job or a factory job or whatever. So it was very demanding. So you kind of worked until you physically couldn't. And let's assume that was 60, 65. Medical technology wasn't as good. Your health wasn't as good at that point because you had a physically strenuous job most of your life. So you didn't live well into your 90s. Most people lived, I don't know, let's call it mid-70s was probably the life expectancy 50, 70, 80 years ago. So companies weren't paying pensions out for much more than on average 10 years, I'm going to say. Now, life expectancy is early to mid-80s. Now it's 20 years. And there's people who live much longer. So anyway, companies are trying to get out of pensions because it's a lot of financial burden for them. With that said, a lot of companies are struggling. Their pensions are what's called underfunded. They don't have enough money to meet all the anticipated future expenses they're going to have. There is a government-run insurance system called PBGC, Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, I believe it is, that private employers have, I think all, or at least most, have to pay into. And it provides insurance if that employer goes bust and can't continue to make its pension payments, the PBGC steps in. Now, they're not guaranteeing 100% of all these pensions. The PBGC, I don't know the exact percentages to be honest, but it also depends on the health of the PBGC itself. The PBGC has stepped in and taken over pensions over the last few decades. So it has some of its own strain in acting as the backstop. Now, if you have what's called a single employer pension, like you work, I'm just making this up, IBM, IBM's pension covers only IBM employees. That's a single employer pension. The PBGC has two pots of insurance. One covers single employer plans, like IBM's plan, like Microsoft's plan, like General Electric's plan, whatever. And one pot that covers what's called multi-employer pension plans. Those are shared plans, like union systems. If you work in the carpenters union, your employer, your contractor employer, doesn't have their own pension. They're part of this pooled union pension that all other people in the carpenters union get that same pension. These multi-employer plans are much more strained at PBGC. So there's higher risk that if and when your multi-employer employer goes bust and the PBGC needs to step in, there's a higher likelihood that you won't get 100 cents on the dollar. It'll be something less. Versus a single employer plan, if that employer goes bust, like IBM, there's a much greater chance PBGC will be able to make you whole or at least close to it. So something to keep in mind. If you do have a private employer pension, do your research. Are they in good shape? If not, what's PBGC look like? Are they going to be able to step in if and when needed? If they do, how much loss? Are they going to pay me 80 cents on the dollar in my pension, or am I going to get 100 cents or 50 cents? Those are all things to consider. If it's a municipal or public pension, like from your school district or your state, that's a different story. You need to look into the health of that particular state's pension. So I sent an article in the group a couple months ago, like New Jersey, for example, where I live, is the 49th worst state pension in terms of how funded or underfunded it is. I forget the number. I'm going to say it's like half maybe. I could be way off. But for every $100 it's going to owe, it only has $50 in hand currently. That's not good. So pension from New Jersey, you should be somewhat concerned about. I think it was Wisconsin, on the other hand, is the single best state in terms of how well funded its pension is. So if you have a state pension from Wisconsin, probably nothing to worry about. If you have a state pension from New Jersey, not saying it's going to go away, but have that in the back of your mind. And final comment. Okay. Final comment to keep in mind. If you do want and need the guarantee and the value of this lifetime monthly payment, employer pensions almost always pay out more than commercial annuities for a given lump sum of money. For example, if you are offered a pension from your employer that's $500 a month, let's assume the lump sum on that is going to be 100 grand. So you can take 500 a month for life, or you can take 100 grand, walk away, do with it as you please. Let's say you take that 100 grand, you go try to buy your own pension by buying a commercial annuity from an insurance company, and you buy this single premium immediate annuity. It's a very vanilla, give them lump sum of money, they give you payments. That 100 grand will only get you like $400 a month from an insurer. So if having that guaranteed fixed lifetime income is important to you, in every case I've seen, taking that corporate pension is going to get you more bang for your buck than taking the lump sum and go buying an annuity on your own. So if you do want and need that fixed money, really look closely at just keeping your pension as opposed to cashing it out and lump summing it and going to buy an annuity somewhere else, because it's probably not going to add up. And that's another reason why these pensions are so strained, because they're fairly generous. If you have a pension, you may not think it's generous, but it is, and that's why these companies that offer pensions are trying to get out of them, because it's such a financial albatross around their neck to have to continue to pay these things for decades. All right, that's it for all I have. Let me see what other questions are here. Janine asks, how do we know what insurance companies we can trust to sell us an annuity? My parents had an unusual experience. Janine, I wonder if you mean unusual in that it was good or that it was bad. If it's bad, that's probably not unusual. Unusual. Anyway, oh, you said usual. Anyway, I'm not sure what you meant there, but great question. It's not, I don't want to bash insurance companies, but I'm going to. Insurance companies themselves aren't bad. Insurance itself isn't bad. Insurance products aren't bad. Life insurance is not inherently bad. It's very good. Life insurance is extremely important when used properly. Annuities are extremely important when used properly. The problem is insurance salespeople are paid mostly, if not solely, on commission. So their incentive is just to sell product. They don't need to act in your best interest. They need to act in their company's best interest. With that said, they can't sell you some steaming pile of garbage that's so egregiously bad for you, then they can get sued. That product only needs to be, quote unquote, suitable for you. Now, it's a very low hurdle to meet to deem something suitable, which is why a lot of people get sold annuities that aren't good for them or are overly expensive, or there's better alternatives for them to use with their money. Guess what? The insurance salesperson that sold it to you is off the hook, because chances are it's not so egregiously crappy that he or she's going to get in trouble for selling it, but it wasn't the right thing to do sort of morally. But when you get paid solely from commission for selling stuff, guess what? You're going to go out and sell stuff. Anyway, so where I'm going with that is the companies themselves aren't bad. There's lots of insurance companies that have been around decades, if not 100 plus years. I won't name names, but there's lots of highly rated, well-established, nationally known insurance companies that have great products. It's the salespeople who are overly zealous, trying to earn their buck. I hate knocking them because they're just doing their thing, trying to make a living. But it's so dirty that something as important as life insurance or annuities is sold like it's a car, like it's vinyl siding, right? They're just out to make a sale. Again, it can't be so crazy bad that they'll get sued, but they're just out to sell it to you. Doesn't matter how important or impactful it is. Like, you go and buy a car, you know you're getting sold the second you walk in that door. Your defenses are up, but you also understand cars. You know what car is good for you, you know what car is not. You know your budget, you know whatever. You go to buy an annuity, you're inherently assuming that person's there to educate you, to sell you, to give you something, to recommend you something that's good for you. It's going to be complex. It's going to have potentially decades-long impact on your life. So there's this different level of assumption of trust and understanding and do right by me that you have when you buy insurance that you don't have when you buy a car or when you go to buy, replacement windows or whatever. That's why I'm saying it's so dirty that insurance is sold almost purely on commission, because it's one big sales machine. It's not, let me give you the best advice for you. I'm not sure I'm going with that. I get worked up about this stuff. But anyway, point is, there's not bad insurance companies. There's bad insurance salespeople who are just out to sell you stuff. How do you know who's good, who's not? My recommendation is work with someone who's called fee only. There's lots of advisors who are fee only. You can go to places like napfa.com, NAPFA, National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, or .org it is actually. Those are all fee only advisors who are not able and not allowed and don't sell anything for commission. You pay them directly, whether it's hourly fees or whatever their fee structure is. They can sit you down and say, yeah, based on your profile and what you explained and what you need, I think you need this type of annuity that's going to do this, that, and the other for you. That person can then either maybe work with you, to work with an insurance person to sell you that annuity and not sell you some other hot pile of crap that he or she makes a lot of money off of. Or that advisor, that fee-only advisor, can write out for you, this is specifically what you need. Take that in hand, go call up whatever major insurance company and say, do you have this product for sale? That's kind of the best I can say. Janine, about how to get a good annuity. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is go, you get those things in the mail, says, hey, come for this free chicken dinner at the conference room at the Hilton, and we'll talk about securing your retirement future. That's an insurance, anytime you see like retirement security or something, that's an insurance salesperson going to pitch people on annuities or whole life insurance. They're gonna disguise it as a financial planning seminar, but they're there to sell you insurance products. The worst thing you can do is go there. Right off the bat, their goal is to sell you something, right? It shouldn't be that insurance people sell solutions in search of problems. That's ass backwards. It should be, you have a problem, you then go seek the appropriate solution, right? That's the flaw with the insurance sales model. They're selling something before they even know what the problem is. You should first define the problem, then figure out the solution. Working with a fee-only advisor could be a good way to help you figure out the problem, to go buy the right solution, as opposed to getting a solution sold to you for a problem you may not actually have. I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but does that, hopefully that makes sense, Janine. Whew, man, I need some water after that. I get real worked up about insurance. All right, where else are we at here? We're well past the time, but I am on a roll. As long as I can keep ranting about insurance, I'm happy to stick around. Now, I love insurance. I have a lot of insurance myself, arguably more than I need, but I chose the insurance I need. I went and bought it. I did not have it sold to me, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Okay, yeah, it looks like we're done here with the comments. So 15 minutes over time. Hopefully you all enjoyed this and my gratuitous insurance salesperson rant at the end here. Quick story for those of you who want to stick around and care. So I graduated college in 2000. I went to school for finance. I wanted to be a financial advisor at the time. I did not quite know what that would look like, but I knew I wanted to help/educate people with making personal financial decisions. So when I was junior or senior in college, logically, I interviewed at the places that were on campus, interviewing for jobs they called quote unquote financial advisor. It was the large household name national insurance and brokerage companies that you all have heard of. I won't name names. I interviewed at 5 or 6 of them. All but one of them was 100% commission, meaning they paid no base salary. It was all go sell. Literally eat what you kill. One of them had a small first year living stipend of like 20,000 bucks. After the first year, the assumption was it's all going to be commission from you selling stuff, so that $20,000 base goes away. Anyway, so I interviewed at these 5 places and pretty quickly realized like these aren't about giving advice and advising. These are all just highly aggressive commissioned sales roles. And it was scary. It was give us a name of all your friends and family, call them all, sell this insurance to them. It was, selling term insurance is good, but you don't make a lot of money in that in commissions. Guess what? Like the jackpot is selling someone this cash value life insurance policy because it has a $10,000 commission in the year that you sell it, versus the term policy is going to pay you 500 bucks or something like that. It was sell this mutual fund because it has a higher upfront commission to it than this mutual fund, which has lower expenses. Just disgusting stuff like that. So I got really turned off at the idea of being an advisor because all I saw at the time was it's all just crappy sales stuff. And again, I feel bad knocking it because people need to make a living, but it's just so twisted and tainted that something as important as insurance and investments is sold in a 100% commission environment. It's disgusting. So anyway, so I gave up on the idea of being an advisor because I got so turned off. This was in 2000. Kind of stumbled into an actuarial role at a large insurance company doing the sort of the behind the scenes analysis behind valuing pensions and doing some of the management of their general portfolio of how they invest the money behind the scenes for their insurance products they sell, and then spent 15 years in other sort of risk management and investment roles in capital market and financing jobs on Wall Street. But a few years ago decided I need to do something more personally fulfilling. So I started looking into again the idea of being an advisor and realized, in the last 20 years, the industry has started to change a lot, thankfully. It's getting away from its pure commission sales roots to more of a true advisory and real sort of financial advice sort of model. And I learned all about different networks out there and current advisors who were doing things the way I thought they should have been done, paid for advice, paid directly from the client, none of this commission nonsense, none of this kickback nonsense. So anyway, that was 2016. I decided, yep, this is what I want to do after I knew there is like a proper way to give advice, not just sell stuff. That was 2016. Spent the last few years studying, learning, getting credentials and education, going to school, figuring out the best way to set up a business, how I want to do it, how I want to charge, whatever. And it all culminated in last year. I left my institutional banking job for good and started up my own thing. Here I am. And now I'm talking to you fine folks on Facebook once a week about all this stuff. So this is really my passion, and I'm doing it how I feel is the right way. Fee for advice, basically. I sell nothing. I have no licenses. Intentionally, I have no licenses, so I can't sell insurance or commissionable investments even if I wanted to. I'm not sure I'm going with that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. There's a disgusting sales culture that's still pretty pervasive throughout the financial industry. It's slowly getting better. The consumers are becoming more aware of it, thankfully, so that they can sift through the crap and find when they're really getting advice versus getting sold something. But there is still a pretty thick sales culture out there, so keep that in mind when you're meeting with someone. And there's no restrictions around using the term advisor, financial planner, whatever. Anybody can call himself that name. An insurance salesperson can call himself or herself a financial advisor. So you got to be careful. Don't pay attention to the name. Pay attention to what they sell, how they're compensated, what they do, who they work for. If they work for a major insurance company, there's your answer. They're out to sell you insurance. Anyway, I'll stop. I can rant forever about this stuff, but thank you all for joining. Next week's topic will be about Social Security. I'll be talking about survivor and spousal benefits. The week after that's going to be a real juicy one. It'll be Danielle Roberts from Boomer Benefits. She is one of the nation's leading Medicare experts. She has a recent book that's out, it's really good, that I'm almost done reading. So she'll be on in 2 weeks as a special guest. We'll be talking all about Medicare. Not coincidentally, I chose October because it is it now? Not yet. It's almost Medicare open enrollment. So from October 15th, I think it is, to December 7th is the annual open enrollment to potentially change your Medicare if you're on Medicare and would like to change it. So timely topic, that'll be a good one. So that's that. Thanks for joining. Sorry I went so much over and sorry for so much ranting, but I will see you all next week. Take care.